You are listening to the Wildlife Photography Podcast with Rob Reed and Josh Galicki, bringing together the love of nature and photography. Episode 7. We talk photography and travel and are joined by a special guest. Well, hello everybody and welcome to episode 7 of the Wildlife Photography Podcast with me, Rob Reed, and my co-host, Josh Galicki. Hi Josh, how's it going?
Good, Rob. Great to be here with you today.
In the last episode, we talked about photography projects and we concentrated on photography close to home in your own backyard, really, didn't we?
Yeah.
And what I thought we'd do this time around is that we'd flip that on its head and talk about photography and travel. And to help us with that, I'm really pleased to say that we are joined by a very special guest, an amazing photographer, a bit of a wanderlust as well, aren't you, Gail?
Terribly.
And fellow wild art judge, Gail Bisson. Gail, welcome to the podcast, and thanks very much for the time and you're taking and coming on to chat to us.
Thank you for asking me to be here. I'm going to enjoy it, I'm sure. Talking about my favorite thing.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Now, for those of people that maybe been living under a rock for the last few years and don't know about you, why don't you just give everybody a brief introduction to you, your photography, and and life in general?
All right, life in general. Well, life in general is great since I retired 4 years ago. However, before that, I was a family physician, and when I went to Africa for my 50th birthday, I'd taken a point and shoot. And my dream was, we were doing this safari with the kids, and all I wanted was pictures of the big five: the elephant, leopard, lion, blah, blah, blah. I never even thought about birds. And then we were in a park and we were having a picnic at a picnic table. And this lilac-breasted roller landed in a branch right above our table. And with my little point and shoot, I got this beautiful image, like great background, no bad twigs. I mean, it was pure luck, right? I knew nothing about photographing birds, but anyway, so when I came home and I had all these pictures, I made one of those Shutterfly books for the kids, and it turned out really well. So everybody loved the lilac-breasted roller picture, so I Googled bird photography, and I mean, holy moly! It was just this huge world that I
history.
Exactly.
I felt
was your bank account ready for it?
No. No, I can remember I bought a Canon 7D and a 100 to 400, and just thinking, oh my God, I can't remember what it was at the time. It's probably $3,000 or $4,000. Thinking, this is unreal that I'm spending this kind of money on myself. And then literally less than a year later, it was gone because it wasn't good enough anymore.
Yeah, and that 600 mil was on the wish list.
Well, actually, I did buy I bought a 500 second hand, but Canon long lenses hold their value, because I can remember I bought it for 7,000 Canadian dollars and I had it for 4 years and I sold it for 6,200 Canadian dollars.
It's pretty good.
So
that's the way to do it. Yeah.
The lenses hold their value. And then I bought a 600 version too, and I used it for 4 years, and I think I sold it for $2,000 less than I paid for it, which is basically I got it for $500 a year. So now the cameras is a whole different thing. I mean, that's just like driving a car. You walk out of the store with your camera and it's a lot, it's depreciated by 30% before you even take a picture on it. But actually, the cameras have turned out to be the cheapest part of photography because it's the trips, right? It's like
we'll get onto that, obviously.
Yeah, the horse is cheap, but the hay and the oats and the board are really
maintaining expensive. It is exactly. Yeah, photography can be an expensive business.
Yes,
and I've talked to Josh about perhaps doing another podcast somewhere down the line about perhaps doing wildlife photography on a budget, because
it's very difficult.
It is very, very difficult without remortgaging your house.
Yeah. But there are I can think of 2 photographers that I know really well that are incredible photographers, and they have, one is a civil servant, has a very a stable job, but nothing that allows him to travel out of the country or buy 600 millimeter lens. And he's, if you're good and you're talented, there is a way to get around it, but
Yeah.
I'm not that good or talented, so I have to buy expensive.
Oh, come on, Gail. We've all seen your work. And I've seen the pictures you came back with from Lake Kerkini. So,
Oh, gee, that's
which
so
is just
it's so easy though, Rob. Like I can't even take credit for that. I mean, you know, these pelicans are endangered, and what happened was they flooded an area of Greece, and these pelicans, which well, there were about 2,000 breeding pairs before COVID, and now there's probably about 750 breeding pairs. So there's 2 lakes where they breed, and the main one
wow.
where I didn't go, they lost 70% of their.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it's huge, but you know, they're on this, so they breed on this on Lake Kerkini, and in the winter they can't dive deep enough to get the fish because it gets cold and the fish move down. Now they do follow the cormorants and they'll steal from the cormorants, but basically they rely on the fishermen's handouts. I mean, otherwise they would die.
Hmm.
That's, you know,
Sounds similar to the crane situation in Japan, in
yeah,
Hokkaido.
Yeah.
I think it's similar.
it's
Yeah.
the same thing, so that it's kind of a, you know, it's a two-edged knife. I mean, yes, they're being fed by humans, but the fishermen have, you know, have lost a lot of money because the fish are, and their livelihood is endangered just by the lack of fish, have flipped it over into a commercial tourist business for photographers.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you know, and the pelicans benefit for sure. So I mean, I mean, just walking along the shore, the pelicans will move in looking for a feed, whether you have fish or not, right? They
Wow.
just know that humans have fish for them, and
They're like ducks after bread, aren't they?
yeah, you know, and it's you know, they're such a beautiful bird. So I always have such mixed feelings, like when that happens. Like I think, oh, this is so cool, I'm getting such good shots, but then I'm thinking, but this isn't the way how initially it was to get the shots. But the thing is that these birds would die in the winter if the fishermen didn't
Yeah.
feed them, because they cannot dive
Absolutely.
deep enough to get the fish.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and your images were the inspiration for us to do this podcast, because you've only just been to Lake Kerkini, haven't you, in early January?
Yeah, and I'm so glad I went. Like it's not a destination that I would have normally picked. I tend to like, you know, Alaska and northern destinations, Iceland, where it's cold, and I think where the population of birds is more representative of Canadian possibilities, right? So it's not a place that I would have normally gone, but I won the trip, and so way back before COVID, but I finally got a chance to take it, and I'm so glad I went. It was just so really cool, and it's not Santorini or Mykonos or any of those fancy Greek islands. This is it's north, and it's about an hour and a half drive north of Thessaloniki, and you're about 10 kilometers from the Bulgarian border. And it's just an area that never in a million years I would have gone, which is what is so much fun about traveling for birds. You go to the strangest and weirdest places, and they always end up, most of the time, being really, really cool. Even if you don't get any good bird pictures, they usually end up being really cool places to check
Yeah.
out.
It looks quite big on the map, Gail. I'm looking at it right now. The lake itself
Yeah, it
looks
is
pretty
quite big.
decent size.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's about, oh, I did ask that question. I would say it's roughly about 10 miles wide and maybe
Wow.
5 miles long.
Yeah, because
And now-
they've got special platforms, haven't they? They built special platforms to stop them getting flooded so they can nest.
There's a lot of natural islands there, and so that's where you'll see them. But they weren't nesting when we were there, and mostly they seem to be using the natural islands for preening and, you know, just more social thing. So I'm not quite sure, but I do know that at the other lake they definitely have platforms for them. But I didn't see any on the lake.
What's the reason for the recent decline you mentioned, Gail, in terms of the numbers? Was it 2,000 to, was it 700 breeding pair?
On
Was that due to
the
COVID?
first lake, yeah, well, it was avian flu, right? That's what wiped
I
them
see.
out. It's avian flu, so it wiped them out. But I
Yeah.
think the numbers are just down because, again, all the usual pressures. I mean, you know, overdevelopment and not enough food, and humans invading their space.
I'll tell you a funny story. Well, not a funny story, funny as in weird, about avian flu. And this is just before, it must have been, probably getting on for 12 months ago, actually. And in fact, I was just about to do one of the live events for Wild Art. I was just preparing for that, and I had a knock on the door, and it was a neighbor and he said, "Oh, I've come across this dead red kite in our horse paddock." I said, "Okay." He said, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, I can't really deal with it now because I'm just about to do a presentation. But why don't you put it in a bin liner and leave it on the doorstep, and I'll deal with it." Basically. So I hadn't thought about bird flu as being a possibility, but I rang DEFRA, who the government agency where you report these things, and explained what had happened. But that was right. It was Christmas, not this year, last year. So it was over a year ago. And so I rang them in between Christmas and New Year, and asked them what I should do with it. And they said, "I will send somebody out to pick it up because we're a bit concerned about bird flu." And I hadn't thought about that possibility. And of course, I'd handled it and whatever, because I had to have a look, didn't I? Just to see, but I couldn't see any obvious signs of it being shot or poisoned, which was what I was worried about. And then, this woman came along in a van with rubber gloves and a face mask and this, that, and the other, and put this thing in a bag and took it away. And she'd asked me whether I'd handled it and whatever. And I said, "Well, yes, I had." She said, "Well, they'll be in touch if it comes back as a positive test." Anyway, because it was that Christmas break, it was a couple of weeks before they got back in touch with me, and they said, "By the way, it died of bird flu. Did you touch it?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "When did you last touch it?" And I could pinpoint the exact day because it was that sort of Christmas New Year period. And so it was over 15 days, I think, something like that. And they said, "Oh, have you been ill?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, okay, that's all right then. If it had been within 2 weeks, they'd have sent the swab team round, basically to test me, because they're really worried with the COVID situation about avian flu making that jump from birds, to humans." So yeah. Anyway, that's my bird flu story, but it's been quite devastating around here, actually, around my area.
I saw a newspaper article that had aerial views of the other lake where the bigger pelican population is, and it was on these little islands. Like there was just bodies after bodies, and they picked them all up. And I mean, it was a huge affair to get them all picked up. But it's just so sad when you see these aerial views of these dead pelicans. It's.
I mean, I picked up when we've been away and we've been to the coast this last year, in the summer and in the autumn, we were forever coming across, the bodies of dead gannets and razorbills and things and other seabirds that obviously had succumbed to avian flu. And I know Shetland, for example, was really badly hit.
I saw an article, Rob, with Shetland, the skuas. I think great skuas are in very low number up there due to avian flu.
Yeah, so it's very worrying, and I know that we've got an egg shortage here at the moment because, of course, all the farmers have had to keep the chickens inside. So that's causing a bit of an issue. But anyway, we digress.
Yes, we
digress. So back to Lake Kerkini, and okay. I got a fact actually that the Dalmatian pelican is the largest species of pelican on the planet, isn't it?
Yeah, they weigh between 8 and 10 pounds, and I think their wingspan can be as big 10 to 12 feet, roughly.
It's 3.5 meters. So 10 to 12 feet. Yeah, enormous. Can you imagine? I mean, I've not seen one, but I mean.
It's like wandering albatross territory.
Well, yeah, that's right. It is. It definitely is but they are beautiful. They are so beautiful with their bright red pouch and their blue eye, and they're just just fun. I mean, they fight a lot. There's a lot of squabbling, and they're just interesting characters to see.
One thing that stands out when I see a lot of the Dalmatian pelican shots from Lake Kerkini is the light. There's a soft light quality there of like powder blues and pinks, and it augments the birds, I think, so nicely as far as the color palette goes.
It's really cool. The first day we were there, it was torrential rain, and so I thought, it was so. And it's funny, you're still out there on the boat. So in the morning, I took a gazillion pictures, which I promptly formatted my card when I got back to the hotel that morning. But then that afternoon, we went out, and it was the clouds were starting to move out, and I thought it's still going to be crap light. And then before you know it, there's something about it's really high mountains to the north, and then just sort of rolling hills to the south of it. And there's just something about it, like the sky the sunset and sunrises, the sky is always seems to be pink, and it just gives that really cool hue. And even when it's cloudy, it's like it's just it's the nicest light. It's really neat. I mean, it has to have something to do with the mountains and the
Yeah.
depth of the lake, and but it really is. Now I have to say that personally, I find that a lot of the pictures that I see from Lake Kerkini, people have bumped up the saturation, um, but even without bumping the saturation, the sky is still pink, and that water is still
Yeah.
that really cool color.
Looks gorgeous. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
really is.
I mean,
Really is.
there are there are various pictures that really stick in my mind from Lake Kerkini over the years, particularly working with, on Bird Photographer of the Year,
Yeah.
for those first few years. And I can remember Bensei Mate and his picture where I think what he used to do was he used to hang a camera off the back of a boat and he used to trail it with fish. And these things used to, they come in really close. You get this wide angle lens. So you get all these goofy shots with their beaks wide open. They're literally right on the camera. And I mean, they were superb. And then I think it was Johan Sigurdsson. He took a really cool shot with those mountains you were talking about in the background and the group of pelicans on the ice. And it was more of a sort of environmental birds in the environment type shot, and it was really cool, and that had some really lovely color tones in it. And then of course we always remember Karen Steele's image of the one sort of skipping towards you on the ice, which was really goofy and really good fun with again with those really nice pastel colors. But I think when you were talking about boosting the saturation, I think that's probably one of those examples.
I mean, because there's a lot of pictures that I've seen out there that now that I've been, I mean, I would say, yes, the pinks and the blues are there, but I mean, any pictures that you've seen that I posted, I have stayed true to the colors. I didn't jack up anything because I just wanted to see how people reacted to like the way it really is, as opposed to with jacked up colors. And it's still beautiful without, jacking up the colors.
I saw your images, Gail. They're beautiful, and I totally agree with you. I mean, there's beauty and subtlety, and there seems to be a trend when folks post-process and they juice colors all the time to a point where it looks fake. There's something to be said about subtlety and reality when you process photos. So I'm totally with you on that.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've just written an article actually for local for the birdwatching magazine that we get in the UK. I've called it Art or Deception, which kind of sort of touches on digital manipulation and the acceptance of how far you go and what people are happy with and what they're not happy with.
I'd say it's even gone past acceptance to expectation. Like,
yeah,
I think the worst offenders are travel brochures. The Tahiti colors. That it's just and then if people don't see those beautiful blues of the ocean and the beautiful greens from the mountains and the tropics, like they're not engaged in that travel magazine. People are just it's beyond accepted. They expect to see these colors, and they're not true.
Well, they're selling a dream, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
They're selling a dream. But now you're going back to your images from Kerkini, Gail. There, I mean, I particularly like that panning shot that you had with the one coming in flight.
Oh, the blur.
The blur that was fabulous, and your double exposure. I thought that was really good, and I thought, no, that Gail's really getting in touch with the artistic side of the photography process. This is great.
That's wild art. Actually, you know what? As frustrating as it is to do those, because I mean, I had 5 full days, so there's no pressure to get I have to get this shot, I have to get that shot. I mean, it was easy to get those typical shots right off the bat, and then it was just fun to play. But literally, to get any good blur, as both of you know, I mean, it's like I think I wrote on my thing that it was like for every 200 pictures, I had one that I liked. Well, that's a lie. It's probably more like 500. Every 500.
Well, it's no different from me. I take 200 pictures before I get one I like anyway. As we said before.
But the double exposure stuff, that's really fun. And because I'm so new at it, like some of the pictures, I still can't figure out how I got them, because I only had 2 exposures. But I think I've hit continuous instead of resetting the camera, so I got like a triple exposure when I wasn't expecting
Well,
it.
that's it. I mean, you can add and add and add, can't you? And,
You know,
the possibilities are endless.
I know. I mean, there's a lot of crap, right? But I mean, the one that I sent you is probably the best one, and it just gives you ideas. But it's really hard, like with moving subjects, like then it's exponentially that much harder
Yeah.
because you can't plan how it's going to work out, but sometimes it works out for the best and sometimes but it's just fun. It's just like, it's kind of like fishing, and you never know when you're going to get a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And when you do, you just skipping down the.
I know, it's like a happy dance, like you go. And then of course, because I'm still so new, I looked at the one that I sent you and I thought, I think this could be good. Is this good? I don't know. So then I sent it off. And then,
Gail, have you got those up on your Facebook page?
Yeah, they're all on Facebook.
Because we ought to link in the show notes to your Facebook page where people can actually see these pictures.
Site too.
Yeah.
They're all uploaded.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do that. Let's link your website so people
right.
can go and have a look and they can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, but it is. But when I was there, I was trying to figure out what was it about the quality of the light in that place that makes it so magical. Like and I mean, I've been in places where there's mountains and a lake, but you don't get that light and the cloud. Like the clouds seem to come in, and when the clouds come in, they're not gray; they're lit up orange and pink. Like every time, it seems like almost every time. And so
it's amazing.
And if we digress off photography, the food.
Isn't that the whole point about travel anyway? It's not just about the photography; it's about immersing yourself in the experience of somewhere new, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the place that we stayed was very typical Greek hotel with stone floors and stone walls and the beamed ceilings, and every room had a fireplace, which we didn't use. I mean, we were never there, but it was. It was just a really cool place, and it felt like I had to go to an ATM machine, and in this little town, there was no ATM machine, so the hotel owner drove me about 15 kilometers away to go to the ATM machine, and it was so like not touristy Greece at all. Like it was just, and people are waving at each other, and the guy must have stopped his car 3 times because there's kids crossing the road and there's goats crossing the road, and it was just like it's definitely not Mykonos or Santorini or these A-lister places. It's just very cool to go.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh. I think I interrupted you. About to say something.
Yeah, no worries. Gail, we've photographed birds for many years, and most birds that we photograph, obviously, they're not confiding subjects. They fly away and they're skittish. That's just the nature of birds. What was it like being in that situation where you have these birds that are so confiding, where, I suspect you can almost touch them or walk right up to them? How was that different for you when it comes to shooting a situation like that versus most of the other places, we've shot across North America?
Well, I brought my 600 millimeter and I should have left it at home. I bought the RF 14 to 35, and I used that a lot. I mean, because basically you hang over the boat. Oh, you should have seen that all of us were bruised from here to here because you're hanging over the edge of the boat, and you're using your flippy screen so that your camera is literally half an inch above the water. And so you're looking through your flippy screen with your 15 to 35. And I use my 100 to 500 a lot because for the tight eye shots. But I'm not like I use my wide angle more in 5 days than I have in 3 years.
That's
and
amazing.
I use my 24 to 70. And it was really kind of cool to see how, like I have one picture of 4 Dalmatian Pelicans at completely varying distances from the boat, but I was at 14 millimeters with that 14, and they're all tack sharp, which is something you would never get with a 600 millimeter, right? Like never in a million years. And it also forces you. Now it was really hard because you're hanging over the edge of the boat and the boat is moving, but I found myself, you think a lot more about composition and making sure that the camera was angled to get the mountain. Like I didn't want cut off mountaintops, right? So there was a lot of that. And then making sure your horizon level is level. That was probably my biggest boo-boo. If I went back, I would be so much more careful about that, because I had a lot of things that by the time I rotated the image, the mountaintop got cropped off.
Yeah. It must be hard hanging off a boat, holding the camera though, and getting the horizon right. That's probably a challenge in and of itself.
Oh, I know. And as I said, because we were hanging over, I mean, I was black and blue when I came home, and so was everybody else on the trip. If I ever did it again, actually, this last day, I was so sore. I took some towels and made basically a corset out of the towels so that when I leaned over,
that's one of those things that people don't tell you about boats, because I do exactly the same thing. You know, if I've been on a boat, then my knees are bruised, my shins are bruised, my stomach's bruised, where you're banging against the side all the time, and you don't notice it while you're in the moment because you're so concentrated on what you're photographing or whatever else you're doing, during that boat trip. And you just, you get back and you go, oh, that hurts and this hurts. Well, I'm not surprised. I've been hanging over the side for half the day. But
but again, it's sort of it's so much fun to do, and it's so much fun to try all this stuff. But always at the back of my head when I'm there is, basically the birds are baited, right? And I don't like that feel. Like, I don't like that feeling at all. It's just, I mean, I appreciate that it's not baited like an owl. It's not the same connotation. I mean, these birds have been living like this for the last 10 years. That's their life. But to have the opportunity to use a wide angle lens, like for 5 days, you probably use it for an hour to an hour and a half every day, which is a lot. And it just gives you opportunities and practice in doing things that you normally would never have a chance.
Yeah.
Just like the blurs, like normally if I'm on a trip, I don't do blurs because I'm so worried about getting, like when I'm in Barrow, like all you want to do is get good shots of the eiders, and you're not going to screw it up or waste time, what I would have said waste time on blurs. But they're so confiding, and it's so easy. You know that you can spend a half an hour doing blurs and probably getting nothing, and you don't feel like you've wasted a morning when you could have had something better because you got time to do it. So that part that was just such a nice treat to not always be under the gun. Like, oh my God, I don't have that shot. I want that shot.
Yeah. And for the wide angle lens too, it seems like a perfect subject because the exaggeration or the distortion you get from being wide works excellent with their bills. You get it's it adds that clownishness to it, which I think is kind of characteristic of the bird.
Yeah, there's a real comedy to some of those images, which I've always really enjoyed. But
one of the best pictures that the tour leader Sean got was one of the pelicans landed on the canopy of the boat, and so with his wide angle, he had it up, and the pelican opened his beak. So basically,
I saw that shot.
Two tack sharp eyes, and then the beak basically eating his camera, right?
Yeah, he shared it on social media recently. I've seen it.
Cool. I missed that one, but there's so many cool shots you can get, and then a lot of the participants, got to work on full frame, the drops falling off the end of the beak, right? Because if you're 24 to 70, they're only 4 or 5 feet away. I had my 100 to 500, and I mean, I don't think I ever went in closer than 400.
Wow.
When can you say that with bird photography? It's very rarely.
Yeah. Although, the last day I did take up my 600 millimeter for about 15 minutes because I thought I've dragged it all the way here, and this will give a different perspective than all of the other pictures because nobody else has a super tele here, and maybe I'll get a different. Anyway, I didn't like them I got some shots that are kind of cool with the mountains in the background, and nothing as good as with the wide angle. And but at least now it just gives you a lot of confidence. Basically I was a beginner with that 14 to 35. I've used it on flowers a few times, but never on anything else. And now I know, like, if I ever get to Yellowstone, that's going to be like, get those beautiful.
You're not going to photograph wolves with your wide angle, that's for sure.
But that picture you have, Josh, of the bison in Yellowstone, with the one, it's, oh God, that's a nice picture.
Yeah, that might have been. I'm wondering if that was a 24 to 105. It was. You could easily photograph bison wide, but With a 600 millimeter, you'll need them for wolves, and you'll get a speck,
Yeah.
unless you
Yeah.
get lucky. Unless you get lucky, but
Yeah.
Well, funny you were talking about being able to experiment, Gail, when you were out in Kerkini, and this is something that Josh and I touched on in the last podcast, actually, when we talked about shooting more locally, and when we sort of talked about going on trips and where you can't actually be as experimental sometimes because you want those banker shots. So if you've gone out to see the Big Five, for example, in Africa, and you only get one or two opportunities, you are not going to be experimental, are you? You're going to be, you're going to want your banker shots before you get there. So, yeah, having the time to do that probably is quite unusual, isn't it? When you actually go away and you go to these locations.
And I mean, and I was worried about because I was thinking 5 whole days of just shooting one species, like this could be real snoozeville, Like I mean, I didn't know, but it opens up all these possibilities of things that I would never have thought I had time to do, and there's no pressure like to get the shot because you're going to get the shot. These birds are so habituated and come so close to the boat. But no, it's definitely fun, and I'm just really psyched to use my wide angles more. But again, now back in Canada, I mean, again,
there's not many places. Maybe a gannet colony. It's hard to
venture. Maybe I've never been there though. But
Yeah, I've been there a few times. You can easily use a wide angle there, actually.
Yeah.
But
because even places like Grimsay, where the the puffins are close, but the puffins are still only about this tall.
yeah,
And yet, even when I was close on Grimsay, like I mean, I did use my 24-70 a few times, but still, you still need a long lens, even on Grimsay, where you can get 10 feet away from a puffin.
Yeah.
But because of
10 feet's a long way with a 16-35 or something like that, though, isn't it? I mean, it's
yeah, and
with something that's 6 inches tall, yeah.
Yeah, they won't. I mean, I was able to carefully crawling towards them. I might be able to get within 3 feet of them, but their behavior changes. Even though you're a belly crawl there, you can tell that they're alert, like they're not doing their normal thing. So, that's not the shot I want. So I back
No,
off.
exactly. And we all know the best shots are the ones where they're acting naturally.
So
Yeah.
but I suppose if you had time, and see again, weather is a factor too, because in Grimsay it's so windy. Only a fool would, put his camera down and walk away with a remote shutter and hope that nothing happened to his or her camera that ended up 200 feet down on the cliffs, right? So
Yeah.
that's the other thing about Kerkini. We had a couple of windy days, but we had beautiful, flat, calm water.
Yeah, the water looks calm in a lot of the images that I see. So
Yeah.
I never pegged it for a windy location based on what I've seen, at least on social media.
No, it's funny, isn't it, when you think about the expanse of water and presumably the elevation it's at.
I know, but we had 2 mornings where we had really still waters, and I think we had a wind because there was a weather system that came through the day before I got there. So I think that we had more wind than what was normal for that area. And again, I don't understand how that can be with the mountains are there and the elevation, and it's just there's something about that place. We need a meteorologist and a geologist and a bunch of people to explain to us how it works.
Yeah. So what was your when you actually went there, Gail? What was your approach when you started looking at different ways you can actually photograph these birds? Because obviously we've seen the standard images. I mean, there are literally thousands of them online because it's a very, very popular location. But there are a few photographers that seem to do very well. There's one I can think of in particular, Ellie Rothney. You probably follow her on Instagram, and she produces some really, really beautiful work. Some approaches I've not seen, elsewhere. Was there anything you had in mind when you went there, or did you just sort of play it by ear when you got there and work with what you had?
Well, I knew that I wanted to try the double exposure with crossing bills on those pelicans. I just had that,
which I've not seen before. I've not seen that, so I thought that was really good.
Because I was trying to imagine a scene of of pelicans. Where would I use double exposure? Like I did take some like full body shots, but when I looked at them, they kind of you know, and so then, but I had that in my mind before I even went on the trip. But I didn't know if it would work or how it would work. So, but the how I got that shot was in the afternoons. They have you go to a beach where where the fishermen dock, and they throw the fish out there. So the pelicans you're on land, so you're stable. Number one, right? You're not in a rocking boat, so you can. And so my thing was how was I going to get this shot in a rocking boat? I didn't realize that we were going to be on land for these shore feeds. So then that's when I was able to. I mean, we were there for 3 hours, right? So I just started practicing. But no, I mean, especially the first day when it was raining so hard and it was so windy, that kind of, I was thinking, oh, like, so I would try everything that morning. Oh my gosh, I think I took 2,800 shots, just trying everything different, hanging off the boat, up top, up low, side. I hated it. Literally, I went back to my room and I started on the card, like I didn't even take it out of the camera. Like the light was terrible, the water looked horrible, so I actually formatted the card. Like, it was just a waste.
Oh, you didn't back anything up.
No, it was just terrible. But then once the light got nice, and then plus the other participants give you ideas too, because they've seen other people's pictures, and then they have this idea and that idea. Probably the hardest one was I never got a fish flip. Their beaks and their pouches are so big that yes, they do the fish flip once in a while, but most of them can flip the fish inside their pouch. Their beak
without opening their mouth. And
so that was something I wasn't expecting. I thought, oh, I can get this. So, but that turned out to be, I didn't get anything that I really liked. And then they fight and they squabble a lot, but there's so many of them that it's just photobomb city, right? You can't get. So basically, I knew like from that first day when I saw how many they were and how quickly they fly into any boat out on the water they fly into. The whole secret is to find the outlier and then just stay with the outlier, right? Because there's just so much photobombing. And some of the photobombing, if you get lucky and you get 3 pelicans in a row or on a diagonal that give a nice pattern, then yes, go for it. And so you're looking for patterns too. If you but again, you're hanging over the boat, your head's up like this, you're trying to look at your flippy screen, and you're looking for that perfect lineup of 3 pelicans. Or so that was sort of when I would go out in the morning on the nice days, was find the outlier and always keep scanning for that possible nice formation that might happen. And again, and lots of times there was the nice formation where you could have beautifully focused, tack sharp pelican at the front, and then the same head position, 2 or 3 pelicans in a row on a diagonal line, which is what the one I was looking for. But there's always a pelican that photobombs it every time.
I think I remember there was a really good image. I think it was probably in Bird Photographer one year, where it was high key, slow shutter speed, wide angle, all coming in for the fish, and they'd done it on I don't know, it must have been about 15th of a second or something like that. So they're all a bit blurry, and it actually was really dynamic. I'd not seen that approach before. It worked really well.
And again, that'd be a lot of frames to get that one.
Yes, I'm sure it
one
was.
morning, it was we had one morning where it was really, really cold, our coldest morning. And so the pelicans didn't fly out to the boat very quickly. Only 3 or 4 came. And that was probably one of my best mornings, because you only had 3 or 4 pelicans to deal with. And so that the other 10 weren't there to photobomb the other 3 or 4. So that was, so sometimes it's almost too much of a good thing.
So it's not a problem you have normally, is it?
No.
I wonder when they see the boat, do they even need to see the fish? They probably see the boat and they just come right in knowing that,
When we were there were probably 3 or 4 tour, different wildlife companies doing these tours, and the boats come out of the harbor and they're there.
It's Pavlov's dog, isn't it?
From everywhere. And
it's amazing how things associate, various things with food pretty quickly. It's a bit like when tractors will go out around the fields around here, and they'll plow or they'll harvest or whatever they're doing at the time, And as soon as that tractor starts up and it's in the field, those red kites are around it. They hear it and they know that they're going to be flushing mammals or whatever. And and they're in. It's incredible. And it's the same thing with pelicans, no doubt, because they just associate boats with food, don't they?
Yeah.
It's a bit like gulls and fishing boats, I guess. But
are there other you mentioned it's obviously the Dalmatian pelicans. Are there any other gulls or other birds that come in besides the pelicans?
The great white pelican, or also called the rosy pelican, we had one that sort of hung around with the flock that would come to our boat, and the pink is beautiful in them. They have this really dark, spooky eye, though, so they don't photograph well. And then the other thing, there's a ton of flamingos, but you can't get close to them.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, we had one flyby where if I had my 600 millimeter, I would have gotten a nice shot. But I have a question for you two now. Josh, have you got any trips planned?
Well, actually, I was going to go to Florida, but I'm going through this home renovation on the second floor of my shore house, and it's doubled in scope, so that's out the door. But Kerm and I are trying to get to Shetland this summer, so that will hopefully be the big trip. Rob, we've been talking to Rebecca, actually, and it looks like end of June, early July. We're probably
we're going to miss you because Jennifer and I are going
before us, right?
Shetland, early June. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it's the first or second week in June we're going up. So in fact, I've just booked the ferry.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because we had to get a dog-friendly cabin.
We're going to fly, I think, into Shetland. I think that's the plan, and then rent a car. But it should be fun.
So what's the flight schedule? You're coming into Aberdeen or somewhere, are you? Or
yeah, we haven't got the flights yet, so we'll have to get that sorted. But we're going to fly in, get a rental car, and then there's a boat tour for the gannets. I think it's Nos, the Nos.
Yeah, the Nos. But well, that's Rebecca's. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's going to set us up on that, and then of course, I guess puffins, seals, whatever we have. We're just hoping for good light.
Otters.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll get those. So you'll get a ton of seabirds. I've never ever been before, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's a bird mecca.
Yeah.
And some of the shots that Rebecca gets, those reflections of the Ida in particular, in the
boats with the red water, and I came across that years ago in Alaska. Actually, you probably were there, Gail, in just outside of the Anchorage airport. There's a lake, and there's all these whatever you call them, puddle jumpers, the planes, and the
water planes.
Yeah, and you can get red-throated loons in those colors, and it was stunning. It's like, oh
yeah. All these things you can do in these locations. So so I'm really looking forward to that. But I think for us it's about a 9 or 10 hour drive from home to Aberdeen, and then from Aberdeen it's an overnight ferry to Shetland. So it's 12 hours or whatever it is. So that'll be an interesting experience with Sky. I'm not quite sure how she's going to get on a ferry. I mean, we took her out on a little boat in Wales when we went a few months ago, and we had a trip around Cardigan Bay to see dolphins, and I actually saw common scoter, I think, while we were there as well. And she actually behaved really, really well, considering it was, quite bumpy.
Yeah. Wow. That's
good. It wasn't flat calm, that's for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how she gets on. But we're really, really looking forward to that. And I think we're going away. I think we've got a couple of days in Wales at the end of February, actually, at the end of the month. And then we're going to Wales again in the autumn for a couple of weeks for a special event, which I'll tell you guys about later on, because we've got a few plans this year, me and Jen. It's all good. Yeah, it's good. That's about all I've got planned. But Gail, what's the favorite place you've been to? What's your favorite out of all the places you've been?
Oh, that's like asking who's your favorite child.
But you've always got a favorite. You just don't want to tell them.
No, I love all of mine exactly the same. It would be a very close tie between Iceland and Alaska. Oh, but Botswana is really good too. I guess I've been to Iceland 5 times, and I've been to Alaska 3 times. So those are my 2 favorites, and if we go by the number of times I've been, I guess I have to say Iceland, but I do love Alaska. I do love
So cold places are preferred.
Well, I think it's because it's just more in my, it's a more of a Canadian distribution. I'm more
Yeah.
likely to see those, those birds in Canada. I think it for friends and family and my Facebook, it resonates much more to have those kind of birds on my social media than a Marshall eagle or a lilac-breasted roller, because there's no connection. But at least with everything in Alaska and Iceland, there's the potential of us seeing that bird this far south. I mean, highly unlikely, but still, it just feels more natural to me to photograph the northern birds. Let's put it that way.
When you say Alaska, Gail, are you Nome, Barrow, these areas?
Yeah. I've been to Barrow twice, Nome once, and then spent 3 days in the Anchorage area.
Okay.
So I haven't done the bears like Lake Clark or Katmai. I'm not a bear. I think it's not that I don't like bears. I just feel like, how can you possibly get anything different in a bear shot?
It is saturated, that's for sure.
Like, how could you get something different? And I mean,
Well, it's
that's
funny because when I went to when I was last in Canada, which is 7 years ago now. Wow, doesn't time fly? We were in Waterton, and we'd gone to, because we'd photographed, I think, about 3 or 4 species of ground squirrel, and there's a place near Waterton that has the 13-lined ground squirrel, and we wanted to find it, so we went to the tourist office and we asked in there, because we'd heard there was a place you can that you can find them, because I wanted to photograph it, and the woman behind the desk said, "Oh my word, somebody not asking about bears. How refreshing is that? Oh yes, I'm going to help you as much as I can." And she was great. She gave us directions to this old church, and as soon as we pulled up, there they were. We found them straight. It was brilliant. And then we had Swainson's hawk overhead.
That's a beautiful bird.
Yeah, and then we had barn swallows that were nesting in the church as well, and all this sort of stuff. It was great. Yeah, we had a really good afternoon. It was fantastic.
What's your favorite spot, Josh?
What's that? What's
your favorite spot?
I would say probably Alaska to shoot outside of, this area. I have a lot of places that are sentimental to me locally, but I think Alaska, there's something special about Alaska. Nome, of course, and even in around Anchorage, it's like its own separate country. You feel, I don't know, it's amazing. I would say Alaska. Africa, probably second. I've been there. That's been amazing. But I think it's hard to beat Alaska. It really is.
What about you, Rob? Where's your favorite place?
Canada.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't appreciate what's in my own backyard.
Well, I absolutely loved it because it was wide open spaces, and what characterized Canada for me perfectly was it was in Waterton. There's you may well know this is a bison enclosure, and we were photographing the bison and the lenses through the fence and getting as close as we could, and this ranger turned up, in a pickup, and I thought, this is what would happen in the UK. Okay, you see, a warden or a ranger or whatever, and they pull up and they're going to tell you can't do something. Whatever you're doing, you can't do that. And I thought, here we go. This is going to be, you can't do that. No. This sums up Canada, and the helpful attitude that everybody has there is that, are you photographing what can I do to help? And it was like, and that sums Canada up for me as a place. It gives you the freedom to do what you want, and people will help you to do what you want to do there, rather than in the UK. anything you can, they'll do anything to stop you from doing things, and there's a big difference. And no, I loved it. I loved the people. I loved everything about Canada. And if I could live anywhere else other than the UK, I'd live in Canada.
Oh, well.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And I always say, if things get bad down here, I might move to Canada.
Well, it's not too far for you, Josh, is it?
It's a short drive for you, and we've got an extra spare bedroom with a whole good spot.
I know there's a lot of shorebirds up there to shoot.
Yeah. No, but I must admit, it's funny. A friend of mine came up to shoot when we had the owl eruption last year. Came up from Florida to shoot the owls, and so we were wandering all over people's properties, walking along the cliffs, and so we found an owl, and it was so cold. But anyway, so we're shooting away, and the lady who lived in the house whose property we were on came out onto the deck, and my Floridian friend said, "Oh my God, what, we're on her property." And I looked at her, and the lady in the house, whom I didn't know, said, "You girls must be so cold. Would you like a cup of tea?" And that blew my friend away. She thought where the shotgun was going to come out. Yeah. But although, having said that, since I started birding, but when I first started birding, there was never a no trespassing sign in my area. You just wandered, and as long as you closed gates and didn't, pollute. But it's funny, in the last 3 or 4 years, I've noticed that there are more and more properties that have the no trespassing sign on. So I think that mentality is creeping in here as well.
Yeah,
because
it's the mine.
Yeah.
It's mine.
Place.
Yeah.
But no, but having said that, if you're willing to make the effort, like there's a couple of places that I love to shoot that the signs went up. So I just went over and found the owner and introduced myself and explained who I was and said, "Is it okay if I see a good bird, can I glomp all over your property?" And there, yes, of course, like there's never anybody who said no if you ask, but things are changing. You can see that distrustful mentality of, you can't go on my property.
And that's what I have, in where I am. I live in North Hampshire. It's agricultural, and we have a lot of chalk streams, which are world renowned actually for their ecosystems and how unique they are. And of course, they're all controlled by private estates that use them for trout fishing and charge a fortune. So you can't get anywhere near them. And they're great for birds. We've got so many birds around here, barn owl and all sorts of things. But you very rarely get close to them because it's all agricultural land, which you can't get access to unless there's a public footpath across it, or it's private estates, fishing estates, shooting estates. It's really, really difficult. So although I've got plenty of countryside around, the areas that are accessible are very few and far between. And people will fence it off, and they will, there will be notices up saying keep out, private, everywhere.
Yeah.
It's
United States is the same, and everybody who has property with a keep out, rest assured they have guns. So I will not tempt fate, but I've come across
that's the scary part when you're in the States. At least in Canada, the sign might be there, but they don't have a gun. They might get really cross, but they don't have a gun. But it is kind of sad. There's one road in particular that's great for warblers where I live. It's not 10 minutes away, and it's about an 8-mile dirt road, and you just cruise up and down. And when I first started warbling over on that, I never saw a single no trespassing sign. And last year I went, and it felt like every property now had a sign that said no trespassing.
Wow.
And where did that come from? None of this was here last year. So I don't know if they've had bad experience.
Are there many wildlife photographers up your way, Gail? I would think not, right?
There's probably, when I first started, there's probably only 4 or 5 of us. There's probably about 20 of us. So it's not like we're interfering.
Have you been responsible for the growth of wildlife photographers in your area, Gail?
No, we have a couple of really good photographers here, that Chris Tinsky, and anyway, there's a couple of really good. But although I must admit, they tend to be more landscape photographers, but a lot of them are switching into wildlife because now that people can afford the bigger lenses, because the price points are coming down, especially the zoom lenses, the Sigma, those
Yeah.
that then people
I tell you, and those zoom lenses, I said, I don't own a 600mm prime because I just can't see the point in spending that much money. For me, for the photography that I do, I'd hardly ever use it. So I'm not going to spend 10 grand or more on
There's a lot of drama now too in the tech community because
Yeah.
Canon, the new R-line cameras, the RFs, they're not allowing Sigma or third party
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so
Oh, I
there's a
didn't know
lot
that.
of drama around that. People are upset. I think rightly so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
dear me.
it's just and some of the stuff, like, I mean, people paid. I don't have an Canon R3, which is not their flagship, but is their flagship, and now that sensor that people paid $8,000 for when they bought their R3 is available in the R7 and the R8 now, which are
Yeah.
$2,000 cameras. And if I had an R3 and paid $8,000 for it, and had my neighbor who got
I bought the R3 Gail.
Did you get the R8?
Yeah, the saving grace though, I think the difference between the R3 and some of the is the buffer. You're able to shoot a lot more, but yeah, I hear you. Canon, of the major brands, they're still producing sensors in a lot of their high-end cameras that are lower megapixel. I'm hoping that whenever the R1 comes out, or whether it's the R5 Mark II, that there'll be a higher resolution, similar to what Nikon and Sony and some of the others are doing. But
can you keep up with all this?
yeah, it's like owning cars. You sell a lens or you sell your old body. I have to say, to your previous point too, Gail, when you're talking about camera bodies, they do not keep their value as much as lens historically. But over this COVID crisis in the supply chains, I was able to sell my R5 and an R6 that I had for almost close to what I paid for it, brand new. And this, I want to say last year. And the only thing I can account for it is the supply chain, and things are backed up, and people are starting to pay, close to full price for some of these things. But that's an oddity, though. I think once things eventually pick up.
Well, I was upset with the 1DX3 because when that came out, I forked out the big bucks, and then 4 months later, the R5 came out on the market, and actually, I just sold my 1DX3, but I mean, it was a desperate sale in a way because I knew it was going to become the most expensive paperweight. Because why would anybody want to buy the 1DX3 when the R1 and the R5 is a better camera than the 1D? Well, almost a better camera. The image quality of the 1DX3 was really amazing, but still, there's so much.
The autofocus is a game change, the AI, I think. And when you can compose and put the animal anywhere in frame without moving the joystick, that's such, and the silent shutter too, I think those two things, alone.
Talking about kit and lenses and things, how do you find actually getting these things on a plane? Because obviously with the weight and everything, this is a really good point to talk about, I think.
Yeah, especially for travel. I get anxiety packing before I go, and I always try to pack more than what I need because you're scared you're not going to have it.
I knew you were going to bring this up, Rob. This is what
Gail's showing everybody a backpack, but
yes, it's my Gear backpack.
It's a podcast, Gail, so people can't see it.
You're gonna have to describe it, Gail.
Basically, I got.
Nice bag, Gail.
I was thinking I was so smart. So I'd show everybody. As I've had the Gear 30-liter bag ever since I started, and I can get everything in that bag. Everything, my 600, my 100.
What about the weight, though? I mean, because the weight restrictions.
Ridiculous. Well, but you know what? People never think that a middle-aged woman is carrying 40 kilos worth of gear on her back. So it's true. It's true. They never stop me. I mean, they just don't think that it's possible that I could carry something that heavy. I mean, I'm very careful. Never, how the stewards or stewardesses will sometimes come down and offer to help you put it, and I always say no, because I'm worried that I'll get caught. But
so I thought you had to weigh those bags as you go in through.
Well, if you have a wheelie bag, they weigh them every time, but if you have a
Wow.
backpack, they
Yeah,
don't.
they won't ask
Oh,
to weigh.
I didn't know that little trick. I shall
The
have to
the
remember that
worst
one.
the worst nightmare I think when traveling is when you have all your gear and if you have like a think tank roller or something and you go on and it's a small regional jet. This happened to me in Canada a couple of times. And there's very little overhead. The overhead you can maybe put like a pouch, it's so small or a backpack. And then they say, "Oh, you need to check this, sir." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I cannot check this." Right. And then, you start sweating and like, you don't understand.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they finally agree to put it in the cabin up front where the flight attendants, and then you're looking, is it still there when you get off? That's the worst.
Yeah.
Here, catch.
No, I find that well, when you fly with Air Canada now, like when you check in online, they it says you must have your medications. Any electronic equipment has to stay with you. It can't go in the hold, and
Oh,
batteries and all this stuff. So now, like I mean, it's in black and white on the screen when you if you actually printed out the 6 pages of a
Yeah.
boarding pass, it's there. And so now I just figure if they ever ask me, I'll say, well, you yourselves have said that camera gear and batteries and
that's good to
has to
know.
go
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
But no, well, when I was flying home, I did a workshop in Botswana, and there were 6 of us, and 5 had the think tank roller bags, and I had my Kiboko Gura gear backpack, and the 5 there was absolutely no arguing, no discussion. They had to gate check their gear, and
Wow.
I got to carry my backpack on the plane.
I've seen how those baggage handlers
Oh,
handle that baggage.
But you know what? Everybody, it turned out okay. Nobody had any issues on the other
Wow.
end.
wow.
But they never even asked to weigh my stuff. I mean, I'm standing with
That's
all of them
incredible.
there,
Yeah,
and they never said a thing to me.
that's
And
key.
Wow.
yeah, so I still have my think tank roller bag, but I think the last time I used it was 10 years ago. And I keep thinking one of these days, as I get older, I'm going to have to go back to the roller bag because I won't be able to carry all this stuff. But
Well,
maybe
having said that, I mean, I actually think that things are getting so much lighter as well now. I mean, if you looked at something like OM System, for example, and how much lighter that kit would be, I'm certainly thinking about it because I tell you, I can't carry heavy backpacks anymore. It kills
Yeah.
my back. I've had years and years and years of it, and yeah, the chiropractor bills are just getting too much. So I've just decided that actually, since I've stopped carrying all this gear around with me, it's improved my back no end, and walking Sky a lot actually, because I walk her 5 or 6 miles every day, and that's really helped with carrying nothing basically. And if I do go out now, I tend to take the harness and just one camera and one lens.
It's freeing when you have that. I mean,
Mm.
or even when you travel and you don't bring a super telephoto like a 600, then it's just, some landscape lenses, maybe a 70 to 200, and you can put it in a backpack. I did that when I was in the Falklands actually a couple of years ago because you don't need a super telephoto there. And it was so freeing. I mean, it was so easy to get on the plane, and
Yeah.
I question never bringing my 600 again on trips. Some trips you need them obviously, but
Yeah, but I mean, but even with the 850, with the battery grip and everything, and it's a bit of a beast when you
it
put
is
all that
heavy.
on
Yeah.
it, and even with the sort of 2 to 500, which isn't that heavy, but it's the whole lot combined, you think, oh, you really know when you've been out using that all day.
Yeah.
It's a bit tiring, but so Gail, I had another question for you actually. What's your sort of worst nightmare, your worst experience traveling?
Well, I mean, last year with post-COVID, I mean, being on Grimsay for a week without any clothes.
Well, at least you had your camera.
Well, actually, you know what? It's funny when I was checking in on my end, when you're in Halifax, there's a lobster pound, so because people buy the live lobsters and take them home, and so as I was checking in, I looked at the girl and I said, you know what? I have a bad feeling. Anyway, so I got out of line and ran over to the lobster store and asked them for it. They have these, big bags. And I threw in my long johns and my down jacket and my gloves and mitts and one other thing. Oh, my pajamas. And so I carried that on board, and thank God I did because I had nothing. And I mean, it's cold in Kinsay. So that was. But as far as the actual photography, I mean, I went to Amherst Island in Ontario to photograph the owls for 6 days. It was cold, it was miserable. We had snowstorms and never saw a single owl. We saw a northern hawk owl on a telephone pole line, and that was it. I mean, I think I took 28 pictures, and they were all of us feeding the chickens. We were feeding the chickadees. So a week's trip, and it was a workshop, and it was $3,000 and
Wow. Ouch. Yeah.
actually, we ended up going to Chapters, which is our local bookstore. We bought a pretend snowy owl. We put it on a branch outside the hotel. And took
See, we got one.
yeah, so that was probably my worst trip in terms of, but I mean, I don't even count that as a bad trip because I mean, it's nature, right? It's a crapshoot. You do not know what you're going to get, right? I mean,
It'll do what it'll do, won't it? I mean, you can't line it up. You can't guarantee things.
But no, I think last summer, and then I got stuck in Barrow for a night, for an extra day, and then I had 3 days between Barrow and Iceland, so I ended up having a day and a half, and I couldn't fly into Sydney. I had to go to Halifax, so I had a 5-hour drive back to Sydney, which I had to repeat the next morning to go to Iceland. Anyway, so so that was probably. I mean, the trips themselves were good, but the travel and everybody, the staff was stressed and everybody was rude, and it was just not a pleasant experience. But this time, I felt when I was traveling, it seemed like everything was back to normal. The staff was back to normal.
Yeah, because Jennifer and I were going to go away. We sort of planned to go to Sri Lanka over Christmas, just gone. And then all the problems started happening over there earlier last year. And we thought, maybe we don't go to Sri Lanka, maybe we'll go somewhere else. And then we looked at Kenya and these sorts of places. And then all the problems over, the flights and the baggage handling and this, that, and the other. And we thought, we've only got a week. I don't want to, go from being stressed and needing a break into another set of stress, having to cope with flights that are delayed or cancelled or transport that you can't organize at the other end. And in the end, we just said, no, I'll tell you what, let's just stay in the UK and we'll just, drive somewhere. And that turned out to be a bit of a disaster as well. Did I tell you this story?
No.
We took a week over Christmas to go to Wales, and we thought, because that would be the easier thing. We haven't got any flights. We could just get in the car and go. Anyway, my car insurance was due. So I paid the car insurance and I paid the car tax that you have to pay over here because it's due at the same time. And then I thought to myself, hold on a second. Isn't my annual check, we get a certificate, your MOT certificate to say your car's still okay to drive on the road because they do all these checks on it. And I thought, isn't that due? And it had run out. So of course my insurance wasn't valid if I didn't have this. And so I thought, okay, well, we can't take mine. I said to Jennifer, we'll take your car. It's fine. So we loaded her car up and we set off down the road, and we go, I don't know, about 30 miles along the road. And all of a sudden the light comes up on the dashboard. And I said, I've got an engine management light on here. What does this mean? It's flashing at me. And she said, I don't know. I said, I've got no power. So we pulled over and we got the manual out, and it said, drive to your nearest garage. So of course, and now it's like the day before Christmas Eve. So we've got, naff all chance of sorting something out before Christmas. So I said, right, I'll turn the car around. We'll limp it home. While I'm doing that, ring a car hire company because we're going to have to do it now and organize it now, bearing in mind it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. And so we had to hire a car. So we got two cars between us, couldn't drive either of them. So we had to hire a car at great expense. And we picked that up. And on the way, so we'd gone and we'd had a whole week and it was great, and we were on our way back and we were 50 miles from home when all of a sudden, I hear this sort of slight pop, and on the dashboard, this light comes up and says rear tire 7 psi, and I thought that's not good. So we had a blowout, and I had to. This is on a dual carriageway. I had to pull over in a lay-by and rang the car rental company, and they got us recovered, fortunately. And we were just outside of town, fortunately, but we were only 50 miles from home. Anyway, that delayed us about 4 or 5 hours to get all that sorted out. It's just, and you thought you couldn't make it. I can't remember the last time I had a puncture, because you got no spare these days. In modern cars, you just don't have a spare, so we had to get recovered.
Oh, jeez.
So I thought, here's me, don't want any stress. And anyway, there you go. Josh, what about you? Have you got any nightmare stories? Traveling nightmare
stories? It was
stories?
actually recently, and it's just travel anxiety and with equipment. I was going to Yellowstone actually, and I was flying out of DCA, right outside of Washington DC, on the other side in Northern Virginia, and I was going through. And the TSA officials like, well, sir, they scan the bag, goes through the scanner. And it was my think tank bag. And I had all my equipment in there. He's like, well, can we look at your bag? And it's happened a million times to me. Yeah, sure. And he says, well, we're going to have to run everything through. They literally took every teleconverter, every lens, every charger, and ran it individually down the conveyor belt while all these people were coming in and out. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm just standing there watching it. And, all these people are going through, and each piece of equipment, it must have taken 45, 50 minutes for them to go through. And I was thinking, I've never seen that before. And I'm thinking somebody might pick up the equipment and, but then I had to put it all back together again. I was almost late for my flight. Needless to say, I wasn't too pleased, but thinking I have two options. I could be nice, or I could not be nice. And this is not the environment where you don't want to be nice. So
exactly.
I was patient, but it was, I sweated it out as I was watching everything come in, slow. And it was going in between people's shoes and, all those things with laptops and everything else. And,
did they give you a reason why they did that?
No, I just think it was incompetence. They just didn't know what they were doing, or maybe it was a trainer, a new person. I don't know, but I've never seen that. Normally when they do that, they'll either do like the bomb test,
the swab test
for what's that?
I always get the swab test done they're looking for bomb materials.
That's what I thought it was going to be. And then they just disassembled the entire thing.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So what's the next trip, Gail?
Actually, I've got 3, believe it or not. I'm going to the Michigan Upper Peninsula at the end of May with a friend for warblers. And then I am going to Colombia the first 2 weeks of September. And then hopefully 3 times lucky, I'm going to the Falklands in November. But I'm so paranoid. The first time I was supposed to go to the Falklands, I got ill and we had to cancel that. And then the second time the trip was booked in 2017 for 2020. And then COVID hit. And so I rebooked for 2021, and the Falklands was still closed in 21. So anyway, so actually this is the 4th time I'm trying. There, so.
Hopefully you can get there, Gail.
The horror stories I've been hearing.
Yeah. Did you get a place at the volunteer house with Derek?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. That's the sort of the reason why I didn't want to do an organized tour. I mean, I think I'm pretty okay. It's small, and I think you can figure it out with the managers on the islands. But I really wanted like 3 or 4 nights at Volunteer House for the King Penguins, because if you do a tour, it's just a day trip, and it's a 2-hour bumpy drive there and back. Apparently,
and I stayed with Derek a couple of years ago, and you see the buses show up at like 11:30 a.m. It's not ideal.
No. So hopefully. But I mean, the horror stories, and the Argentinians they're playing hardball with some of these flights. Facebook friend, actually, I have met Judy Rojero and her husband. They went there, and for some reason, once a month, the LATAM, is that how you say it? LATAM flight out of Santiago has to land in this place in Argentina. And
Rio Gallegos, I think, or something like that. Yeah,
anyway,
we had to do that.
Did you? And this flight had the governor's husband on it. So they were told that there was no airspace for their plane to go through to fly to the Falklands. So they waited on the tarmac for 4 hours. Then finally they turned them around. So they were 2 hours into their flight back to Santiago when the Argentinians cleared the airspace for them to go to the Falklands. So the war might be long over, but the feelings and the dirty political stuff that's going on between Argentina and the
Yeah.
Falklands is still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the flights. I know that the Denise Ippolito's recent workshop, their flight was canceled, and but I mean they got back the next day, but they were all at the airport, and the sign comes up, your flight is canceled. Did you have any issues?
No, actually, we were we were lucky. This was in 2018. We had issues. A friend of mine, her father used to own one of the islands actually out west in the Falklands. It was called New Island. It's called New Island actually, and that was donated into the trust. So we went to visit her and we shot there. But you can only fly off of this island if you have a north wind, and we did not have a north wind coming for the near term. Like nothing forecasted for like the next couple of days. We had to get off the island. So we got on a cruise ship that showed up. We didn't even have tickets. They knew her, thankfully, Georgina. She's very sweet. And they sent a Zodiac out, and we got on the Zodiac and we went on a cruise ship, and they took us back to Stanley. That was pretty interesting. Yeah.
That's cool.
It was a very expensive cruise. Hapag Lloyd. It was a German cruise, and there's about 150 people on. There was one of these cruises where you had multiple people on staff for just one person, and then we show up like all dirty with our photography equipment, and they're staring at us.
Did you have to do the washing up?
Yeah. It made for good stories, I think, for the rest of the crew. They were very curious on who are these people that just show up.
And did anybody? They must have all spoken English, though. If they were German, most of the Germans speak English.
Yeah, they were all very nice, and they allowed us to eat, in the diner, which was very nice. I mean, we were having shrimp and avocado dip.
But they presented you with a bill at the end.
Yeah, no bill, believe it or not. I was like, wow.
They didn't charge you
the RAF
all?
rations we're eating on a New Island, but
they didn't charge you?
No.
Oh,
No, it was
nice.
It was just a very, very nice thing because they stop in on the island and they have a tour, and thankfully the island we were on was part of this tour, and they said, well, we're heading back to Stanley, and they took us.
That's wonderful. What a nice story.
If we didn't get on the boat, we would have never made it back.
The adventures of traveling, people.
I mean, my fingers are crossed. I just feel like I've tried so many times to get there that what else is going to come up. But anyway,
it'll be amazing. It's the best bird photography in the world. It's hard to come close to that.
And
don't pack your 600. You don't need it. Yeah. I would take 100mm macro though. You can get some great, bill and eyes and stuff like that. But the 70-200 was the most used lens that I had there in the 24-105. I mean, they'll walk right up.
I think this is actually really quite key, isn't it? Talking about basically looking at doing your research before you go anywhere as to exactly the kit that you think you're going to need. I think that's key. That's probably a good takeaway from this, isn't it? If you are going to go on an expensive trip, make sure you're doing a lot of research.
And no, I've been picking everybody. As soon as I see on Facebook or Instagram somebody's just back from the Falklands, I introduce myself and say, what's the scoop? But somebody else, Vicky Joron was telling me that she wished she'd had brought her 100mm macro. So I thought, okay, well that's a cheap enough lens that I'll just throw that in my duffel bag. Like I'm not even going to worry about packing it, so that's an easy one to do. And she said the same thing, the close-ups of the eyes and the bills, and which I honestly would not have thought about bringing that lens. I really wouldn't have. So
of all my shooting, there was one day where I had the best light ever, and it was in the Falklands. It was at Volunteer Point. It was my last morning there. I was there with a friend of mine, Sujinder, and we woke up and we saw this ring of fire, and we ran down. It was the best light I've ever had.
Oh,
cool. It was amazing.
You're pretty lucky, I think, because normally it's pretty miserable, isn't it?
It can be crazy. I mean, but what's nice is the weather patterns go through so quickly in the Falklands. You'll get rainbows and a lot of dramatic skies, and it makes for great photography. It really does.
Because I mean, a lot of people, the comments I read is, well, we started out in the rain and I wasn't going to go. And then all of a sudden, the rainbows come out, the sun comes out, and thank God.
The weather comes through really quickly. It's like Scotland or anywhere like that. The weather really does come through quite quickly. So when what looks as though it's going to be pretty horrible actually can give you some of the best lighting conditions. Well, we've been going for well over an hour. So should we wrap up? And let's wrap up with Gail's one piece of advice. If you could give anybody a piece of advice about traveling for photography, I'll put you on the spot here, Gail. What would it be?
It's research. Everything. Read everything you can about the destination. Talk to anybody that you know so that you have the right gear. And your clothing, and not so much for, well, I mean, if you go to Africa with the wrong clothes, that would be uncomfortable. But if you're going to northern destinations, know your base layers and layer your clothing. But it's research. It's you have to take the time to research the flights, research the island, research the birds, of course. So that would be my tip. 50% of your travel is upfront before you even go, I think. And actually, I think that's almost as fun as the actual trip, because
I think so. It builds the anticipation as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
absolutely.
So there you go. Research.
Brilliant. Well, Gail, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure to have you on,
Well,
and for this chat, and take us to more exotic places than we went to in the last podcast. Because as I said, we talked about shooting on your doorstep, but I think it was a nice way to sort of dovetail into that podcast. I think by doing the opposite.
Thanks, Gail.
It's nice talking to you, Josh. Happy travels, everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you again in the next one. You have been listening to the Wildlife Photography Podcast. If you have enjoyed the content, then please help us to spread the word by sharing a link on your social media platforms, giving us a like, and leaving us a comment. See you all again next time.